We now turn to U.S. President Donald Trump's stance on military involvement in Ukraine. Trump has ruled out sending U.S. troops to Ukraine to help enforce a peace deal. When asked during a phone interview with Fox News whether he could assure listeners, including many members of his mega base who support an isolationist America First foreign policy, that the U.S. would not put troops on the ground in Ukraine, Trump said, quote, "You have my assurance and I am president." He did, however, say that Washington may be willing to provide air support to Ukraine in order to backstop a deal, and what would still be a remarkable shift in his administration's policy on the conflict. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt later confirmed that there were no plans for U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine.
On security guarantees, which is the president has definitively stated U.S. boots will not be on the ground in Ukraine, but we can certainly help in the coordination and perhaps provide other means of security guarantees to our European allies. The president understands security guarantees are crucially important to ensure a lasting peace, and he has directed his national security team to coordinate with our friends in Europe and also to continue to cooperate and discuss these matters with Ukraine and Russia as well.
Ms. Leavitt was also asked for Russia's response to NATO's troops potentially being on the ground in Ukraine.
The president continues to have these conversations with both leaders. Those conversations took place in Anchorage, Alaska, again yesterday with the Europeans and President Zelensky, and he has directed his team to come up with a framework for these security guarantees that can be acceptable to help ensure a lasting peace and end this war. And President Trump has always said, in order to learn, in order to move the ball forward with diplomacy and towards peace, you have to have open dialogue. And so that's why the president has had several conversations by phone and, of course, an in-person meeting last Friday with President Putin. He also has talked to President Zelensky dozens of times, had him here at the White House yesterday, and he's understanding what both sides want, what both sides are going to have to give up. And he has always said, in order to get a good deal, both sides are going to have to walk away a little bit unhappy. So he continues to learn a lot throughout these conversations, which is why we've seen progress from both sides. And I would also just add, when it comes to learning and moving the ball forward, look at how both Russia and Ukraine have actually talked directly for the first time in many years, thanks to the efforts of this president and this administration.
For more on this, we spoke to White House correspondent Brian Karem.
Well, I think at some point in time, someone said the 2 words or 3 words, World War III, and decided that perhaps having boots on the ground in Ukraine could be potentially very, very lethal and very dangerous. That's that you can go back and see that there are several movies based on that very proposition of American troops and Russian troops being in close proximity together. It's inherently dangerous. And so at some point in time, I think someone probably told Donald Trump that perhaps, and this had to come from the DOD, this would not come from Leavitt, it wouldn't come from anybody else, but once this started to come down, I guarantee you, because I spoke with my sources at the DOD, there was a complete and deep concern that this would lead to something that could destroy us all. There's no other way to put it but that way. So that's where it started, and someone finally had to have Donald Trump come out and say, listen, when I said this, I didn't mean that.
We also asked Brian about the increase in unilateral support we are seeing from European leaders towards Donald Trump.
There is appearance and there is reality. And here's the appearance is the support for Donald Trump. But the reality is, if you listen to what was said afterwards, you also heard members of these other world leaders say, look, we can't have another one of these meetings until there's a ceasefire. They're speaking realities and they're listening. What they've learned in the first 6 months of Donald Trump is how to placate Donald Trump to get what you want. And let's go back to that meeting that you talk about. The first one with Zelensky was a horror show and a disaster. And you had the vice president of the United States castigating him in front of the press in a live event. It was unheard of. It was unpresidential. It was something you would see out of a tin-pot dictator. It was not something that you would see out of the pomp and ceremony of the United States of America and the president of the United States. So this time, when Zelensky came, he brought with him, I looked at it as an intervention. Some said it was like, babysitters and the adults coming to babysit Donnie. But what happened was after he OD'd on the drug called Putin, up in Alaska, he had to come back and have an intervention with people who said, "No, sit down, son. This is how it really is." So in private, you saw a different side. You didn't see that. What you saw in public were these people going, "Yeah, Donald, you're great. You're this, you're that." So he can use it as propaganda. So he can come out and do what Caroline Levitt did, was walk into the Brady briefing room and for 5 to 10 minutes on a Tuesday afternoon, wasted all of our time telling us what a great human being Donald Trump is and how great he is and how wonderful he is and how he spouts rainbows from his backside. And without Donald Trump, there would be nothing. They play that game because they know they have to get him on their side. They know how to get him to do the right thing, or at least they think they do now. And so what you saw publicly was appeasing a very insecure man, appeasing his need to be praised. And so doing that, they were hopefully able to get what they needed to get, and that was for him to grow a backbone and a spine against Russian aggression. And it also helped that it's a show of force as well. It served several roles. So it also served as an ability to stand up to Putin and say, "Look, we're still united in this." And Donald Trump came out and took advantage of the situation and said, "Yeah, you all are paying 5% now instead of 2%. NATO's a great thing." So he had to praise himself again. The praise went to the point where he's even showing off portraits of himself in the White House, like the one where he got shot and there's, the ear damage, and he's looking at that. Yeah, that was a bad day. Oh, we've done great things. So it's all to Donnie. It's all about Donnie. To the world leaders who were there on that stage, it was much more important. And I think they were far more successful this time around than when Zelensky was there the first time.